Welcome, and thank you for coming this evening to our Planning Advisory Group meeting. Welcome online, and hello, councillors. Good, and Sharon? Can you hear us online? Yes, no?
I can hear you.
Thank you. Right. The housekeeping, as usual. If you hear the alarm going off and not expecting any practices, so out the door, down the stairs, not the lift, or out through this one. And you'll find the route out over to the other car, the other side of the focal, the front. And this I have to read to you, as usual. Subject to Standing Order 413, a person who attends a meeting is permitted to report on the meeting whilst the meeting is open to the public. To report means to film, photograph, make an audio recording of meeting proceedings, use other means for enabling persons not present to see or hear the meeting as it takes place, or later, or to report, or to provide oral or written commentary about the meeting so that the report or commentary is available as the meeting takes place, or later to persons not present. Further details are given in the Portishead Town Council Filming and Recording Policy, Policy C8, and Portishead Town Council Behaviour Policy 413. A person present at the meeting may not provide an oral report or oral commentary about a meeting as it takes place without permission. Okay. So, apologies for absence. We are 3 down tonight. We have apologies from Councillor Snowden, Councillor Cartwright, and Councillor Davey. Do we have an acceptance for the absences tonight? Roger, Emma, all in favour? Yeah.
Yeah, approve the absences.
We have approved them. Thank you. So, declaration of councillors' interests, starting Emma.
I need to declare a personal interest in that I have an acquaintance who is a neighbour to Glenorchy.
Okay.
That I'm aware of.
No, I'm aware of.
None that I'm aware.
I too have acquaintances in the neighbourhood of Glenorchy, Jean Lord and June Brailsford. I also live a stone's throw away from Highlands Road, 11 Highlands Road, 0840. That's the application tonight. And 15067 Cholton View, I know the applicant making the representation on that item. So if it comes to a vote, I will abstain or leave the room. Thank you. Chairman's report, site meeting to the Mirage building. I've requested whether we can attend, or some of us can attend, to see what's going on at the Mirage, and they have responded, and they have advised that they would probably arrange a site visit once all the relevant parties have been informed and agreed to a visit. So hopefully something on that will happen. There's a consultation from the Environment Agency in respect to the variation of the construction site permit, variation application EPR JP3122GM/B0112. The link to the consultation is, as you can see on your agenda, and it was circulated to members because it's now closed, correct? Yeah. 4.3, the Environment Agency has granted consent in respect to a water quality final permitting decisions, and another long number there in code. Does that, that's not, well, it's the same one, isn't it? It's the one I've just read out, yeah.
It's different. One's BO12 and one's BO11.
Thank you. Yes, yes, right. That's good. North Somerset Council has advised that owing to the government's new planning reforms, they are currently considering the implications and the next steps. Therefore, the intended consultation planned for the autumn will no longer take place. Full details can be found at North Somerset's reviewing local plan. So now we're going to come to public participation. I have a gavel here, so I'm going to be fairly strict, 4 or 5 minutes max, and you're all here to talk about Glenorchy, correct? Which we're going to bring up first on the agenda. So following your comments, please state who you are, and if how many of you likely want to talk? 3, fine. So who's going to start? Who would like to start? Okay, Justine.
I've got a couple of handouts, just share some illustrative
Thank you.
pictures. Down here, Justine Flower, live in Copper Cliffs, which is a neighbouring property with my husband, Graham Flower. And apologies, but I'm going to read from my notes so that I don't miss anything out. Whilst the proposals at first glance look better than last year's submission, we were very disappointed to see that some of the key areas that were refused have been included again. The areas that we're objecting to are the same areas that the plans failed on last year: loss of privacy and amenity, mass and scale, and appearance and character. Firstly, loss of privacy and amenity for neighbours. We note that section 2, illustration F of the SPD1 clearly shows windows on the side of a garden boundary overlooking a neighbour's garden with a big cross. The images on slide 2 show 3 new proposed windows. The proposed elevation is shown overlaying the trees and shrubs. 2 reasons for that. Firstly, we're not photoshopping experts, and secondly, the Acer and sumacs are deciduous, and so that is how it would look in our garden in the winter and all the time if the tree and shrubs died. As you're all aware, trees and shrubs cannot be relied upon for screening. As the property is only just over 1 metre from our boundary, we're very concerned that the occupants would be able to simply turn their heads left to right, particularly in the proposed new first floor window, and see every inch of our garden and seating areas as well as into our windows. Our whole garden would be completely overlooked. Seascape and Brackenwood would also suffer overlooking from these windows. The proposed new roof window at 1800 by 1800 is extremely large. Hard to tell exactly on the plans, but the bottom of the window is showing as between 1 metre and 1.5 metres from floor level. Section 4.2 of SPD1 says, I quote, "Roof lights will only overcome privacy issues when they are positioned high enough in the roof slope to prevent overlooking. The required height is normally 1.7 metres above the internal floor level." This window would have direct line of sight into all of our rear windows, which are all habitable rooms. The existing roof windows and west-facing front window are in eave storage and the hall stairwell. We are aware that there is none or minimal overlooking at present. The proposed new ground floor window is just a solid wall at the moment, and there is no screening there. These increased levels of overlooking would result in a complete loss of privacy and amenity in our garden and into our rear windows, and unacceptably harm our way of life, and we can see no precedent locally for windows overlooking a garden to this extent. We note that previous planning approval extensions for Glenorchy had conditions imposed that no windows were allowed at gable height to prevent overlooking of neighbours' gardens. The planning statement, section 2.15, talks about addressing refusal clauses from last year. I quote, "The impacts on privacy primarily related to the proposed balcony to the front of the property at first floor level." The 2023 refusal notice, point 2, however, said, I quote, "The proposed windows in the extension and the proposed balcony, by virtue of their site, position and proximity to site boundaries, would enable a high degree of overlooking into the rear gardens of the adjoining properties at Ship Lanes and Copper Cliffs, which would unacceptably harm the living conditions of their respective occupants. We believe the same applies again." 2. Mass and scale in close proximity to boundaries. We note that previous planning approval extensions for Glenorchy were designed with conditions imposed to have lower gable ends on the north and south elevations, to reduce the overbearing impact on neighbours, and with the roof sloping away from boundaries to minimise the visible mass in neighbours' gardens. The images on slide 3 show the increased mass visible in our garden, which is not a wide garden and only just over 1 metre from the boundary. The existing house is staggered back from the boundary and is not intrusive in our garden. Hard to show as the extended gable comes towards our garden, but if you look at slide 4, by transposing the existing and proposed elevations next to each other, you can see the huge increase in mass and scale visible in our garden to the north and also those of Brackenwood, North and East, and Windrush East behind. We would have a much larger, massive building basically in our face, which would be overpowering, domineering, and oppressive. Being further down the hill exacerbates this. From our rear bottom patio, using the ground heights in the topographical survey from the 2023 application, it would tower about 9 metres above us. The planning statement section 3.3 states that this alternative proposal is of a lesser scale and mass compared to the previous application. Whilst that is true, it is not, however, the point. The comparison must be with the existing property, and this proposal still presents a huge increase in mass and scale, disproportionate with the width of the plot and the proximity to boundaries. I've got to stop.
It was a bit more than 4.
Was it? I just have to finish this bit then. The refusal notice said, I quote, the proposed extension by reasons of its height, mass, scale and proximity to the site boundaries would have unacceptable overbearing and overshadowing impacts on the adjoining properties of Ship Lanes and Coppercliffs to the detriment of their respective occupants. We believe the same applies again. Thanks.
Thank you.
Just the 3 other photos in there. Jack is going to talk now about Ship Lanes and La Rosa.
Have you got your hand up to speak next?
No, I'd like to see the slides.
Well,
Yeah.
they haven't been shown yet. And they're all online anyway.
Right, okay, thank you. So I'll make sure we can see them.
As I say, we've got a copy there that they
I
can
haven't
have.
got, no.
Has anybody got a
What
copy?
are you saying?
We'll give one of these.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
The 2 that I've handed out are the ones that are online.
Is it?
Because I
Is it
showed
this?
the one that was I just gave there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
Who's next to speak? Yes. Just tell us who you are.
I'm Catherine Keach. I'm live at La Rosa with my husband, Philip Keach. So yeah, thank you for giving us the opportunity to comment on these plans. So we live at La Rosa and Dawn and Chris are direct neighbours living at Ship Lanes. Dawn has asked me to speak on her behalf as well as our own. We would like to have had the opportunity to discuss the plans before they were formally submitted, and we were unaware of them until the council wrote to us. The previous application was rejected by planning, and these new plans appear to fail on exactly the same grounds. This is very frustrating and stressful as they don't seem to have taken on board the advice and guidance from North Somerset planners. For Ship Lanes, the key areas we would object to are loss of privacy and loss of amenity and increase in mass and scale per the Residential Design Guide Section 1, protecting living conditions of neighbours, and DM32 and DM38 of North Somerset Sites and Policies Plan Part 1. These proposals would result in loss of privacy and loss of amenity use in the rear garden, Summerhouse Terrace and the patio at the back of Ship Lanes. The rear garden is protected from weather, and Dawn and Chris have over the years created pleasant seating areas. The proposals would increase the mass of the house with massive windows on 2 floors and bring it several metres forwards and sideways closer to them, completely overpowering and overlooking the garden. Overlooking of the Summerhouse patio and rear patio were both refusal points before. Both Dawn and Chris are surprised to see them repeated. The angle of vision around the gable overhang does not prevent overlooking, made worse as Ship Lanes slower down the hill than Glenorchy. The garden is key to Dawn and Chris's enjoyment of this property, and these proposals, if approved, would forever change their way of life for the worse. The proposal, whilst visually better than before, is still out of keeping with the street scene. The extensive front gable and new forward and sideways projection would amount to a substantial increase in the design and overall scale and size compared to the current building. We feel the proposal would not be in keeping with other houses along this road. For our house, La Rosa, previously Footlands, we also object on the grounds of loss of privacy and amenity and increase in mass and scale. The current building is partially screened by our fencing and hedge. However, the hedge cannot be relied upon as a permanent screen and will be nowhere near high enough to screen the new development. The enlarged footprint in the southwest corner of the property results in a huge increase in size and mass, which will be particularly overbearing in our garden, which is lower down the slope, curtailing our enjoyment of our garden and reducing the amount of light into 3 bedrooms in the mornings. In addition, no mention is made of how construction would be managed. We were all particularly concerned at how removal of most of the house would be managed within the constraints of the plot and very narrow driveway. Thank you.
Ronnie? Hello, I'm Ed Robertshaw.
Okay,
No,
put your name.
hello, I'm Ed Robertshaw. My wife Paula and I own Glen Orkey on Lake Road. I'm a software engineer by trade. I bought the property as it's close to my mother and other relatives who live in Portishead and have been part of the community for many years. We instructed planning consultants to assist us with this project. They're attending this meeting virtually. We chose Glen Orkey over other properties in Portishead due to the views over the estuary. However, as with many properties built in the late 50s, early 60s, it does not meet the needs of a modern family. We are therefore seeking to renovate Glen Orkey for it to meet the needs of a family of today. This includes providing additional bedroom space, dedicated office space, and improving the living space. We recognize the significance of the lake grounds area in terms of its landscape, also admire the quality of almost every house is unique. Unlike many other areas of the country which are dominated by uniform housing styles, this area has embraced individuality. We want to design a home that positively contributes to the area, and we've been through a detailed iterative design process to achieve this. This process has taken into consideration surrounding context, feedback received from neighbours and from the town council on our previous application. This application is significantly reduced in scale compared to the previous application and seeks to address the previous concerns raised regarding impacts on access to daylight and sunlight, as well as privacy and overlooking. This includes reducing the height and other changes. When choosing external materials, we look to the surrounding area, the council's adopted design guidance. This highlights the predominance of rendered or painted walls, large windows to capture views, to include bespoke feature windows and pitched roofs. We wanted to keep some timber cladding as that is a key feature of the current property. Like most properties, ours is detached, but unlike most, ours is less than 2 stories in height. The proposals do not seek to extend above the existing ridgeline, which will ensure any impact on access to daylight and sunlight are minimized. This application seeks to retain the chalet style of the property, retaining the same overall height and not extending beyond the extent of existing walls. Accommodation at the first floor levels remains within the roof space, ensuring lower profile overall. This means it remains of a scale and massing that is appropriate for the original dwelling and in context with our neighbours. But also that does not appear dominant in views from the lake grounds. Privacy is important to us as it is to our neighbours. We recognise the property benefits from an elevated position on the hillside. Whilst this provides us with outstanding views, this also results in an unusual relationship with our neighbours due to changes in levels. We will not be creating any new or additional views to our neighbours, as all viewpoints are existing. We will retain at least a 21-metre separation distance to our neighbours' rear elevations, and so will not result in privacy concerns, a matter confirmed by the council's planning officers when considering our previous application. We hope that you will see we are simply trying to create a functional home for a family, and that in designing the scheme, we are being appropriately respectful to the needs of our neighbours, as well as the unique character of the lake grounds. Our appointed architect and planning consultants have advised us throughout this process, and we are confident that our planning application is of an appropriate scale and appearance according with the relevant planning policy frameworks. We want to positively and proactively engage with the town council and hope this has been demonstrated through our actions today. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have relating to our application. We would welcome your feedback on the material planning considerations of our application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Upshaw. The two people here online, I'm not sure whether one of them is your agent or not. You might wish to.
Lucy Furban might be.
Hi, yes.
It's not a name I'm familiar with.
Yes,
Yeah.
it
It
is.
is, okay.
She's registered to join. Yes, it is.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much.
Do you just want to outline what our role is in the planning?
I will,
process?
yeah, I'm just coming up to it,
Yeah,
yes.
sorry, just to remind you.
Are there any other members tonight who wish to speak to us, address the committee? No. Okay, well, thank you. Before we go into the discussions of our planning applications this evening, I just want to remind you that we are the advisory group and that it's North Somerset Council who make the final decisions and are the arbiters on planning law and so on and so forth. So we're just making the comments as an advisory group. Councillors, are you happy for us to discuss Glenorchy first?
Yes, yeah.
So we'll move in standing orders now and discuss this particular application, 1250.
Yeah, we missed out the minutes, but you can come back to these if you
I
like.
have missed out the minutes. I will come back to them then. Thank
Okay.
you. Correct. Where were they on the list?
Number 6.
So they were.
Ask a question.
Yes.
Please can I have some clarity on timescales? So after this meeting today, when we respectfully listen to people's valid concerns, which we're going to address, how long do we have to respond? And also, how fast can we get a very clear, concise, objective list of all objections, and how long do we have to respond to them, please?
Well, as far as I'm aware, the online comments,
Yeah.
objections or not, will probably be already closed, won't they? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it closed about.
Yeah.
Closed on, I think,
Yeah, okay. So following this evening, the results of tonight's meeting will go straight down to North Somerset in the next couple of days. And
See what
then,
the schedule of their next meeting is.
yeah, the officers will,
I was going to say that I think they've given us to the 14th to get our comments as a town council down to North Somerset Council,
Mhm.
and we'll be sending them tomorrow probably. So that's fine.
Or maybe Friday.
Or maybe Friday then, yes.
case officer might be the same.
Yeah, and I think the determination date is currently the 29th of this month. So they sort of have to have at least made a recommendation by then. And then, of course, you've got the potential that if the ward councillor decides to call it into committee, then it will have to go to whenever the next planning committee is, which may extend that beyond the 29th of this month.
Okay. So the
But
object.
it's likely to be by the end of next month.
Okay.
At the latest, I'd have thought.
Okay. So visibility for everybody in this meeting to see minutes from the meeting will be available when?
Hopefully Friday this
Thank you.
week.
Thank you.
Hopefully.
That's great. Thank you very much.
I'll get them done as quickly as I can.
Yeah, thank you very much.
The meeting's recorded and the recording will go up.
The recording from the website will go onto the website, yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Before we engage in the conversation regarding the planning application, just in the context historically, as I understand, the plot of Glenorchy was originally the gardens of the two neighbours each side, and they divided it in the 50s at some point, and hence Glenorchy is quite narrow in comparison to many of the others on Lake Road. And it was sited at the back as a consequence of the decision of those two neighbours selling that plot. So it has that elevated position. It's only one of three that do on Lake Road, and hence the constraints within the fairly tight boundaries that they have there. So I think we all agree that it's a much improved design than the previous application. There are obviously still concerns over it. So let's open the discussion now. Any comments from you all? I think mass and scale are the main issues, probably, insofar as it's affecting the three neighbours around. And I think it's a concern which obviously affects the privacy values of those three neighbours. Mitigating that is something that maybe can be discussed between yourselves as the owners and the neighbours in due course. But I feel that as a committee, I don't know what your other views are.
Can I ask
We will.
a very naive question? I'm new to this committee, so why is it possible to move the location of the house, or does it have to be on the footprint of what's already there? Because the obvious thing would be to move it nearer to me. We move it nearer the road.
Down the plot. Well, I think the house was constructed in the late 50s, wasn't it? And I think it's been extended and altered a bit since over the years in various guises. And so it's sort of, yeah, I don't think anyone would disagree about the fact that it probably needs updating. And full demolition might be something you've discussed, I don't know. But
Can I just answer that? Sorry, the question there. When it was originally built, it was specified that it had to be built back there for the two owners of our two plots, and that was built into the conditions of the build. That's just why where it is.
Yeah.
I have no record of any of that.
well, it might
Not
have,
through conveyancing. That sounds like a commercial agreement that has nothing to do with planning.
we're talking 70 years ago, aren't we? So
We're talking about now.
yeah, I appreciate that. Roger.
No, I mean, I agree with what you said here. The concerns seem to be around mass and scale and overlooking loss of privacy, don't they? That's
Yes.
and I know that there's a fair number of concerns on the planning portal, and there's a reasonable number of supportive comments on there as well, which sort of gives me the impression that maybe the application's getting somewhere near a stage where it might be acceptable, certainly more acceptable than the previous one. I think everyone needs to just remember that the planning is a process, and often when you engage a professional in your designs, they start at what they would like the most and work their way backwards from there. So obviously the people who live around there start with what they would like the most and work upwards from there. So it's often a compromise that gets brought to somewhere along the line. Ultimately, North Somerset will make their decision, and when it comes to loss of privacy, they've got a number of rules there which they'll apply against this to see whether or not it reaches the threshold for that. From our perspective, because I occasionally sit on North Somerset planning, I should not make a decision on this one in case it gets called in and I end up sitting on the planning committee because I can't be seen to prejudge. So it's sort of, I think we're in the right direction, although we may not be quite where everyone wants to be at the moment. But for the rest of it, I'm going to have to sit this one out.
Okay.
I'll make a note then that you're going to declare an interest and move this.
It's not an interest. It's a prejudge. I can't be seen to prejudge an application until it comes to North Somerset.
Well, I think there are various policies that are affecting this application. One of them being the North Somerset Sites and Policy Plan, DM 32 and 57, both of which I think have an impact on the proposals as they stand in relation to the amenity and privacy which has been flagged up, which I don't think we can deny in this instance in relation to the north-facing window and the bulk of the extension on the opposite neighbour. So I'm minded to recommend that we refuse this on these grounds, the mass and scale and the current design of it.
From our perspective, in terms of what we're doing, we can't determine that, can we?
No, it's just an observation.
To determine what?
that it's contrary to the planning recommendation or those particular planning conditions there.
But it is compromising the views, the privacy and the amenity value of those neighbouring properties.
Given the additional windows that there's already viewpoints from.
Yes.
So we've already got a footprint of a premises.
Yeah.
And we've already got viewpoints from that premises. And we're extending the height of the current property.
Yeah.
At what point does this scale of mass become, that's not for us to determine, is it? That's a North Somerset.
Well, we're making the observations on those grounds, and I think those in themselves lend to our comments, therefore, going forward on those grounds.
So if we are minded as a committee, which I don't know if we are, but if we were minded as a committee to say that we believed that the mass and scale was too much, let's say, and we believed there was a loss of privacy, that would be us just saying that, flagging to North Somerset that they should check those policies. So they would then check those policies in detail and see whether or not our observations were correct. So this isn't us saying it's definitely in breach. This is us saying, please check these policies and see if it is in breach. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, no, there's no problem. I mean,
the fact might want to say something.
Can you clarify what you meant when you said refuse? Because you just said you identify some policies. You said refuse. What does that mean?
well, in terms of our objection this evening, in terms of we either accept and approve or we object, and so yeah, I'm making the suggestion that we object to this on those grounds.
Why didn't you take up the feedback? With the opportunity to talk to the planning consultant or the architect, like this whole group was offered.
We can't do that within the forum of this evening. I mean, that's something which you're in the position of being able to facilitate, not us.
But you seem to be basing this on very little information from arguably biased sources.
So there's a lot of information. You know, we've been through this, most of us, and looked at the plans and discussed things. I made an overture to your agent, and
You did, but then
yes.
you backed out of the meeting.
I didn't have a meeting.
They offered you a meeting, you said you have one, and then you backed out.
Only on the grounds that I had other things to do, and we didn't facilitate an online discussion about it, but we had an email.
I'm just surprised you think you've got sufficient information to make these recommendations.
Well, I feel that we are on. I feel as though I've got sufficient evidence to do that, so I'm making a proposal that we object to this application. Do I have a seconder?
I would agree with that.
So I'm suggesting that we refute, we object on those grounds that the mass scale and design of the proposals within the restricted site boundaries will compromise the privacy and amenity value of the three immediate neighbours. This is contrary to what I've mentioned, DM 32 and 57. And additionally, I feel that the proposed design in its elevated position will be detrimental to the landscape views from the Esplanade and elsewhere, facing Wood Hill and the Eastwood Conservation Area. All those in favour of that objection?
Are you still seconding that longer statement? Martin?
Yeah, that's a
Yes.
different, slightly different
I'm
statement.
seconding that longer thing.
You are second.
Those in favour? 2 and 2 abstentions, yeah. Well, 3, including yours, which we should
I
already given.
can't vote, so
So where does that stand?
It's a failed.
Okay, right,
It's a
fine,
failed.
okay.
So
Can we just check that we've got 2 that were in favour and then
2
we've got-
abstentions, 3, including Roger, on grounds of this position is decent.
is it still within our gift to make a second proposal if anyone wants to?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Somebody wants to
Well, I would not,
substantiate
because
it.
obviously I'm staying out of this, but
So
if
either
anyone
you
else
two?
wants to make a proposal, they may.
I personally don't think that there is, and actually the PowerPoints help to demonstrate how lesser structure this actually is now from the previous application. It's not dissimilar to various different properties that are there, including the character and the windows and everything which are in our approved character statement. The outlook from the Esplanade back up to Wood Hill doesn't appear to be overly affected in any way. The house right next door is white and grey in character anyway. That's not dissimilar to many of the houses along Lake Road, to be frank. The only thing that I would suggest potentially is the review of that north-facing window in the upper section, which has the direct sight over the garden. But that's my only thing. But
you could recommend, if you want, you could propose acceptance subject to.
No objection subject to.
No objection subject to on that one, and see whether or not you can get a second and then a vote in favour of that.
So subject to the second window, yeah.
yeah,
If you wanted to, not by word in your mouth.
yeah, no. I think collectively we all need to be able to move forward with this, because otherwise what we're going to be doing is just ping-ponging the decisions, and it's going to I feel, obviously, I know that there's not clarity really, I guess, in terms of anybody's thoughts, but I think what it would help if you were all talking to a certain degree, and whether we can help facilitate that, then I'm more than happy to try and to do that. But in terms of the design and what we're looking at now, if this was here without anybody's objections, really, I've seen many of these types of applications be approved and move through, especially sort of down the sort of Clevedon end, let's say, of Portishead. So I just feel that we need to be able to try and get that compromise, and just a flat objection in terms of all of the various different iterations is not going to get any of us anywhere. At the end of the day, you will all be neighbours, and you will all be together, for hopefully many years to come in that sense. But I appreciate what everybody's saying, but I really feel that we kind of need to try and find some compromise to be able to move on. And if that is, defrosting in that upper window, to any level, to obscure that view, or if it's any other thing that can do that.
You're not going to obscure a bedroom window, are you?
I think no.
I think
it's for the planning officer to
I
decide.
think the outcome of it would be for the planning officer.
Yeah, he will generate any discussions around amends.
Yes,
So
exactly.
the planning officer didn't speak to us.
They don't speak to anybody.
They skipped the whole processes. They didn't negotiate with us on anything. So to rely on the case officer is like relying on nothing.
And I think that's why, obviously, from what Mike said at the beginning, we are advisory in this capacity, and we.
The best thing we could get is the case officer to respond to our emails and be responsive. Because we can't talk to any. There's 30 odd objections. There's 30 odd comments. How do I talk to 30 people? I can't do that. I can't go to my neighbour and say, we'll put in a taller fence. I can't go to them and say, well, we'll just go to the window. There's too many people.
Yeah.
And there's no communication.
So,
The planning officers don't speak to anybody. to tell them again.
Emma, would you like to make a
Yeah.
recommendation then?
Oh.
Are you
Sorry,
wishing?
I was just going to say, may I just also just comment on behalf of the applicant? Sorry, I did try to just speak before, if that's okay, if now's an appropriate time.
Carry on.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, sorry, I didn't catch your name. Is it Emma? I'm not sure which councillor you are. Apologies.
Blackmore.
Yeah, thank you. I think you've raised some really good points and are being very pragmatic. I think there is certainly a way forward. I'd agree with the applicant that if any of the councillors can support us in just encouraging the planning officer to engage with us, that would very much help. But I think after this meeting this evening, it's been really helpful to hear the comments from local residents, which do echo the comments that we've seen online. So we will be discussing those with the applicant and looking at the scheme to see what further information we can provide just to help get this scheme over the line to as many people's satisfaction as possible. But yeah, I agree. I'm sure there is a pragmatic way forward and we will be working as such. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think we're all in agreement that there needs to be more dialogue between you all. So, Emma, what would you wish to make a proposal then?
It was no objection, subject to the second one being.
Yeah, certainly, and if that's, you know, the way that we can go, but I don't want to second guess what potentially might be adapted in terms of the plans. So I'm certainly happy to put that proposal in, and then obviously if the plans need to change, I guess the application would go full circle again, as we'd be presented with whatever plans that we're presented with, if that's, you know, a change to that window or a frosting or
So,
you know, or anything else really, I guess. Then
So do you want to call for a seconder?
yeah, certainly. Anybody? Yeah.
And then a vote in favour of that?
Yeah, two of us.
You can stick with your first one, yeah?
mhm.
That's failed again then.
I can't. Don't look at me, Catherine.
Okay, so
You have no comment then, through.
we have no comment going through, I'm afraid. I'm afraid we're stalemate on that one. Which draws that one to a conclusion then this evening, I'm afraid.
What I will do is, obviously the summary of discussions will go to the case officer, but they won't be observations. There'll be a copy of what was discussed. Thank you very much.
Did
Thank you very much for
Did
coming, all
everyone
of
get
you.
what happened there?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. I said, did everyone understand what happened there?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fine. No, I wanted to make sure that everyone who left knew that we've not made a decision on it, and therefore the final decision will be made down in North Somerset. If you wish it to be called in, speak to Tim's thing, I think.
We're in standing orders, by the way.
Sorry, yeah. Who's, shall I?
Yeah, if you want to nip out.
So you want councillor who can have two reports for the committee if need be. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
okay.
Could you recommend?
Yes.
For those of you online, we're just emptying the room. There were quite a few people here. Roads 0798 FUH. Retrospective on this one is large property development on Moor Road, where a lot of the properties have been changed in various styles over the years.
Nice, we do.
I'll do it after.
Well, I was going to do it at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, have you got all the notes there in front of you about 313? I don't have to read the whole lot out, do I? What did I write? Proposed property renovation. Well, it's all, a lot of it's all been done. It's been approved in the past. First floor, rear, and single side extensions. I had no issues with this particular application, so I have no objections to it. I'm proposing no objections.
Yeah, no objection.
Objection.
Right, so we're all in favour of that.
Did we notice there was any online? That one.
No, we didn't, no. So,
But majority in
seconded
favour.
by Em and myself.
It's okay.
11 Highlands Road. Interesting proposal here, post-war house, self-build, I believe, sitting on its plot. They want to replace it. I imagine after so many years, its life expired in a sense. 0840, this one is FUL. So it's a complete demolition and replacement. Same height.
Yeah.
Larger, you'd expect that. Fairly eco in its proposals. I had no objection to this.
No objection. There was just a couple of things noted, and I don't know if we need to pick those up, Sharon. That was the proposals that it needed to include bird and bat boxes and hedgerow planting on completion to replace what was being taken away. There was no construction management statement that was in part of the planning, but that was being conditional. That was conditional upon the approval.
I mean, there is also an online comment about it being very close to one of the neighbours, whereas if you look at it on its plan, it's quite away from any neighbour.
Yeah.
So I was a bit puzzled by that one. The drive will come in where their current garage is and then swing round in front of the property. And it's a largish plot and it sits quite comfortably there, and it doesn't impinge on the views for the property behind, in which it's sitting in its original garden.
I thought it would actually could enhance the local landscape, and removal of quite a fair bit of concrete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then, because that's what it
as
sat on at the
vegetation on
minute.
it will actually improve biodiversity.
Yeah, and in due course it was blended in with the surroundings. Okay, so that meets with approval.
No objection.
No objections, no. 10 High View.
You're going to take a vote on that.
Oh, I thought we did.
You did, sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, you can have Mike and myself again.
Thank you.
10 High View, and that is sort of along the side of High Downs School. Small extension on the rear of the property. No one's going to be really overlooking it or seeing it. No. Proposed, and Jenny seconded. All in favour of approval on that one, thank you. 52 Brampton. Again, fairly uncontroversial. Porch on the front. A number of, I think, houses have already done this, and I have no objection to it.
No
Jenny
objection.
seconded. Opposed, no objection throughout. 28 Wood Hill. Our friends in Bower House, quite complex design. Again, at the rear of the property, it seemingly sits there, probably not affecting anyone really.
The only comment I had, sorry, on this, Mike, was that it's at the part of Woods Hill where there's steps leading up to it, so high wall. There's no construction management statement again. No, and there's no. There's only a single row of car parking there, isn't there? So where the building materials, how they're going to access it, or where they're going to be stored, I don't know. It doesn't mention it. I know it's obviously necessary for us, but probably an observation that needs to be
Okay,
captured.
yeah, fair point, yes. Right. But no objection
No
otherwise.
objection,
No.
no objection to it itself. It's just, I guess it could cause mayhem on the road itself, if you know what I mean.
We'll say that's passed subject to that.
Yeah, I would imagine that it would have to have the management statement.
Did we take a vote on that one?
No,
Didn't
not
seem to
yet.
be conditional, so.
I'll propose if you like.
Yeah, okay,
Second.
there's the
Yeah, no,
pre and post. All in favour then? Yeah. All.
Jenny and Martin.
Mhm. 5 Ashdown Roads, slightly different kettle of fish, quite a large development here. There are 2 comments online, both objections
And I've got
from
some
neighbours, I
comments,
think.
Yeah.
It sits in a plot, very large plot, down by Sugarloaf. Quite a substantial house. You can see the outline of the original. So I think it's involved with demolition.
Yeah. So my comments on this one is it's been, the application has come under an MMA.
Yeah.
I don't think it's an MMA personally. I think it would possibly require either a full, or I don't know what the one in between those are, but the MMA takes it back to the previous application, which was refused. The additions to this MMA,
Mhm.
yeah, look to be similar to what was refused back in February, or prior to February, when it was redacted and then updated and put back in. So
Which I think we approved back then.
it was approved back in February. Yeah, that's right. But the one which was refused previously is more akin to this MMA that has gone in.
I see. To allow for the redesign of proposed dwelling, including redistribution of massing and alteration to proposed drainage scheme. Yeah, the 2 comments online. So one's saying the south-facing 2-story part of the building has been completely redesigned. And people are both objections are saying more or less what you're saying, Emma, that it's not a minor material amendment.
Not at all. It's completely structural.
So is that your proposal, Emma? So it's
Propose
an
an
objection on the line
grounds
that
that you
it's
don't
too much
feel-
work for MMA.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Fair enough, yeah. Seconded by Martin. In favour of that then, all 4 of us. Moving on, 18 Beach Road West. Now, although some of the houses along Beach Road West have been altered over the years, this is one of the traditional ones, which have been there probably since the 30s. And it stands slightly alone now in its streetscape alongside some major alterations alongside in the neighbouring properties. My personal view is that whilst the ridge height of the proposal goes up to the apex of the current house, it's a block rather than the apex as it's currently is. I don't like it. I think it's far too high for the street scene and is too dominant on Beach Road West. And on those grounds alone, I feel that it's contrary to the local environment.
The character area,
Character area.
Not part of our plan, is it keeping the,
the maintenance of the street scenes.
that's right. Absolutely.
Whilst appreciating they might want to put a dormer up there of a larger scale than the current
Yeah,
one,
but it's-
that is just a mass.
it's just fine.
I did wonder, it's been, the application again has gone in as an FUH, not a
It's
full.
full.
It is, that's full, yeah. We don't have any internal plans on the submission. They're all external, aren't they?
To be honest,
Also-
I didn't bother printing them out. If they are there, I'm not sure.
Okay,
They would
well,
normally be there if it's full.
I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
if it's a 2-bed.
No, it's much more than a
It's
2-bed.
much more than
Yeah.
2 bed.
Absolutely.
It's, I was going to say, I think it might be 5-bed, but I might getting confused.
Anyone?
We have,
We'll have a quick look.
Yeah.
Application 1279. Proposed hip to gable roof conversion with a central flat roof, installation of 6 roof lights and PV panels, creation of flat roof dormer to front elevation with integrated balcony and creation of a canopy to the front elevation. Fenestration alterations, including cladding alterations to the front elevation, replacement of 2 bay windows with projecting patio doors, and replacement of front entryway and rear patio doors with new.
It's a 3-bed property.
3 minutes, okay, incorrect.
But I still object to the frontage.
Yeah.
So with the front, I mean, I agree with you, but you have got a straight frontage with the house immediately to the left of it, but
Indeed.
it's mitigated by the
Roof.
the pitched roof that's at the front end of the property.
And that's stipulated in the character area
Yeah,
section
okay.
E,
Yeah.
where that's covers that area there, doesn't it? It's pitch roofs. It's like actually what we just discussed. It's a pitch roof, character windows, and or
And this is breaking that, and of course pushing up that height. There's one large block. So I propose objection. Martin seconded. All in favour of
Can
objection?
you just confirm what the objection is? Sorry, are we talking about the too high for the street scene and dominates the street? Is that what the objection was? Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
maintenance.
it's height, it's increased height is given the mass an objection on the grounds of its dominance over the street scene and neighbouring properties.
In opposition of the character area statement from the
Okay.
adopted, I think the right word that we, our adopted, what's their neighbourhood plan?
What's that?
Did we vote on that?
Yes.
So moving on then, 1222 LDP, conversion of integral garage to livable space works to include the replacement of the existing garage door with 1 window and creation of 1 window to the rear elevation.
Which number?
1222,
Yeah.
2 Linnet Gardens. We've had similar applications as this one in the past. No, I don't either. Martin's proposing.
Yep.
Joan is seconding. All in favour of approval? Yes. Yep.
That was registered as no statutory.
Yes, it was no
consultation,
statutory
yeah.
consultation.
Oh, yes. You're
That
quite
one
right.
I said.
You're quite right.
Yes.
My apologies.
Okay.
It's confused me.
Moving on to 113 High Street. Now we are within the conservation area on this one. This is the St. Peter's Conservation Area.
1366, isn't it?
1366.
Yes, I beg your pardon. I didn't give you that one. FUH. Proposed flat roof over the internal courtyard and conversion of the existing store to the family.
This was quite
family room.
difficult to follow. I found this quite hard.
So it's proposing there's a bit of flying freehold involved in this property. So there is a bit of complexity, but it has been sold. Someone's bought it.
Well,
It's
Sorry,
a possible.
I think it's an awesome character. And they've not proposed a drop curve, have they? And that's,
Well, aside from that, of course, they are going to breach that external wall and remove the vegetation and put up a pretty ugly, sorry, I shouldn't use that word, put up a large 6-foot fence against that wall, the remaining bit of wall.
I think my comments, from what I recall were.
Sorry, it's not neat.
So, so we've got, it's a protected character area, in terms of what we've got in the neighbourhood plan. There's no application for a drop curb.
There's no highway report.
No, there's
No,
nothing like
quite
that. We are within close proximity to the school, in terms of pedestrian footfall. Certainly, for vehicular movement, across the pavement, it's not,
they got decent line of sight coming down that road as well.
Well, it's just past the slight bend, but there are always parked vehicles along that stretch because the house Parkins Arcade
and
is
one of the
effectively an
narrowest-
HMO.
It's one of the narrowest sections of pavement, to be honest, on the left-hand side there.
I'm a bit concerned that this property is being bought by an agent. property agent. And it could possibly be, in my view, be turned into an HMO as well.
Yeah, possibly. Well, I don't think we're in favour of it then generally, are we?
No, I think
On those grounds.
On the grounds of the character statement, the high street, the pedestrian
Yeah.
access, there's no drop curb application. So I think those are our observations.
and
really.
detrimental to the conservation area.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Yeah, and whether it does set a precedent, which is the
Well, that's the other
other
thing. Yeah, absolutely.
comment in terms of
Well,
for the high street.
Yeah, I mean, it's a potential first step towards removing that whole of that wall, which forms a character
Yeah.
garden to the adjoining property. So,
If you can object on that, I'll propose that.
thank you, Martin. Seconded
Yeah,
by
second.
Emma. In favour of rejection.
Yeah.
Thanks. 1478 full.
Sorry, we've missed 71 South Road, 1292.
I haven't got that.
We haven't got that.
No, all right.
It's in the spreadsheet.
Oh, well,
Ah,
Ah.
okay.
But that's as late applications,
all right, okay.
is that all right?
So, yeah, on the agenda paper, we'll go in,
Yeah, sorry.
carry on. 1478 full application, 11A Hillcrest Road. Proposed partial conversion of integral garage, single story rear extension with balcony above and hip to gable. I didn't have an issue with this one. Anyone else got comments?
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
It's so the property itself is a build in the garden of what was 11, presumably. I don't know exactly, but it's been built at the rear of the house. Therefore, its proximity to the neighbours down on Nor Road brings it closer.
Mhm.
The proposal is to build up and put a window in the new first floor area, which then, from a line of sight point of view, might impinge on the neighbours in Nor Road. 365 and 367 Nor Road. So I think from our observations, I think it might be necessary for the planning or the case officer to maybe do a site visit, because it's not, you can't see it from the road because of it's in the middle of two parallel roads, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah. Okay.
There is a comment online, which is this talking about a deed of conveyancing, section 2, the vendor's covenant and agree. Right, okay, so there's someone objecting, probably one of the neighbours. In fact, it is the neighbour, 11 Hillcrest Road. So something to do with the covenant on what they could or couldn't do. I have to admit that I didn't obviously look at this one in detail, and I should have done.
It's quite a major change to the build property
Yeah.
because it's the whole grab basement is now being used. Which isn't being lived in at the moment, and that's the whole footprint. And then you've also gone up into the roof as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
it's
quite
a
a major change.
it is. So
So it's come in as a full application, but as I said, I think there's probably aspects of it that might need further attention from the case officer, I think.
Okay, yeah, point taken. All right. So on what grounds then are we objecting? The scale of the development within the garden?
It's
existing at the moment, isn't
it
it?
is existing.
So
at the
they want,
moment,
obviously
yeah.
wanting to
It's,
change it.
I think it's just it's potentially privacy that we might need to.
So the same sort of issues that we've already.
it'll be the top, it'll be the extension into the roof.
Yeah, so this is direct line of sight from the new first floor directly into the rear of the properties.
Oh, right.
So it's, yeah, it's different to what we've previously discussed. This is direct
Properties
line.
that are at the rear of the property.
Yeah. Yeah, so, let me use some.
So effectively,
Let me use some.
one elevation, the front elevation is going up quite considerably, isn't it?
That's right. So you've got probably 11 Hillcrest, this property here, then you've got two properties on Nor Road. There's a very narrow driveway going from Hillcrest down. What this property here is doing is then being elevated,
Mhm.
and then you've got direct line.
Oh, line of sight and things
Yeah,
like that.
down to the street, down to Nor Road, the
Yeah.
rear of the Nor Road properties.
And that's close enough to be impacting on the privacy of those.
Actually, there's a plot plan there, but I can't really tell.
So what you're saying is it objects to a potential loss of privacy into the rear properties on Nor Road.
Yeah. As I said, it might come to nothing. It might be over 20 odd meters, but I can't really tell. But I think the case
Because-
officer probably needs to.
The rear of that property goes up to 3 stories, doesn't it? Because it's got this huge
It does
dormer in
now.
the roof.
That's it.
So that's the bit that will be overlooked in Nor Road.
That at the moment is, yeah, it's all down in the basement.
Mhm.
This garage, I think,
Right.
store. It's that bit there, it's that.
Yeah, okay. Do you feel you've got enough written down?
Yeah, but objects to a potential loss of privacy into the rear properties on Nor Road.
In light of its mass and scale?
In light of its massive scale, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. On the sloping, on the sloping.
From the, yeah, from the
topography,
topography.
yeah.
But yeah, it's exacerbated by the topography, I guess.
Right, thank you. 1487 full, 52 Brock End, proposed conversion of integral garage, livable space, including the replacement of garage door with one window. Any comments? I have no objection to this one.
Objection to this one, or like to say?
Only one for me. They're making it into a double driveway. Taking away so it's a cul-de-sac end.
Mhm.
They're making it a double driveway, to take obviously the space, I guess, of where the car currently parks. The double driveway moves into the section of where there's looks like a bungalow in the corner, and that's their potentially reversing their vehicular access. So whereas there's a bit of greenery between the vehicle access at the moment, this will completely butt up against it. So I don't know, it's obviously private land. I don't think it's anything to do with highways, but I don't know if the approval needs to be conditional on, some form of something just designating what them in and out, if that makes sense.
Could it be, I mean, you're
only an
assuming it's going to be
observation.
impinging on the neighbour's property,
No, it's
on the
not.
boundary.
It's on the back, it's
On the
definitely
boundary
on the
of the
boundary of the neighbour's
So it
property, but-
is possibly detrimental to the neighbour.
Yeah, it's
So
only
we
the
could put
vehicle
that as
access,
subject
but
to
yeah.
no complaint from the neighbour or no.
I think so, yeah. So completely approved. There's no issue, no objection.
Subject
It's
to neighbourhood comments.
Yeah.
Right,
So are we saying creation of a double driveway may result in loss of open space that could be private land to accommodate?
vehicle.
Vehicle manoeuvring.
Everybody happy with that one?
Yep.
Yeah. Emma proposed it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Jenny seconded it. 1503 full, 8 Wood Hill Road, proposed erection of first floor extension to the east elevation to accommodate an ensuite.
No objection.
No objection.
Objection to that one.
Proposer.
Yeah.
You seconded it, Emma. Right, thank you. So that's that batch. We have some late applications, including the South Road one. And planning consultations. There are these proposed parking restrictions, agenda item 8.1. So the list has gone forward. There have been a couple of comments from me in respect to West Hill. Roger, you made some comments, did you, in respect to the bits down in your neck of the woods?
There was this is the one on Newfoundland Way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've asked us if we've considered that putting parking restrictions there may actually increase the flow of traffic to the point where they might exceed the speed limit, I think.
And also just putting it on one side, or just park on the other side.
Except the double yellows.
What was it they said here is the reasoning from the town council for the extensions, and asked if the town council has considered that parking cars may relocate to other locations and could cause an increase in the speed of vehicles using these roads. So yeah, currently there's a number of occasions when vehicles can't get through that road at all because of the parked cars on there. So yeah, I think we have. I have been inundated for the last year and a half, 2 years, with people who live on that road saying that the traffic situation is awful. They can't get in or out of the junction. It just goes on. I've been down that road when they've been collecting the rubbish, and I've seen vehicles driving down the pavement to try and get out of there because the bin van stops in the middle of the road and blocks the entire road. And we're never ever going to get a bus service down that road if we don't fix some of these issues. So I think the answer to that is yes, we have considered this. We've also considered the relocation to the free parking spaces, which are time unrestricted, at the back of Waitrose, which is literally a stone's throw from where that is. So yeah, I think that they may go faster down that bit of road. Currently they do 7 miles an hour if they're lucky, so they might actually make 20 if we're lucky. There's a certain planning officer who believes that that parking, allowing cars to park all over the place, means that you don't have to bother putting speed humps in because it's natural traffic calming. But here it's gone beyond traffic calming to gridlock.
Right.
So we'll add those comments of Rogers to the observation back. Yeah, again.
Yes. Right. Any further? What you see in front of you? There has been one further observation which we put onto the next list, which sadly got admitted, which might have been my fault. Right, so the late applications, I think they're on their own now. 1320 full 1 Halliwell Road. We've deferred this one on the grounds that clearly there is an issue going on here with this elevated deck at the back.
We've got
so
we're potentially planning a visit, and we'll report back for September.
That's good. Are you planning to go to the house which is the objectors? Okay, fine. I've looked at the designs and plans online, and you would have thought perhaps it was just fairly straightforward, isn't it? But it clearly isn't.
Should we go back up to 1293?
The South Road?
Yeah.
Yes. Can someone remind me what this one's like?
So this is actually just one which was a tree. So it's a sycamore that needs 3 sections being removed. The only thing I was concerned about is that the rear of number 71 is covered by a tree protection order, which under the within the application states that it should include photos or sketches of the specific works that are to be undertaken, and there is no such sketches or photos of which of the 3 branches are due to be removed.
Okay.
So I don't know whether we can approve it given the information's not there to, and given that it's under a tree protection order. But I don't know if the maybe because it wasn't on the printed agenda, our tree warden hasn't looked at it, so I don't know if we can.
That I wouldn't know.
It's not TPO. If it's not on there, he was going to write to. Is it TPO or is it?
Yeah, the whole section in Woodhill was TPO.
TRCA was in the conservation area.
No, so I looked at the North Somerset map earlier and it's all under the tree, the TPO green highlight.
Nick, the tree one did send some comments in, but not relevant to this one,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
were added.
it's
So
in-
I think he was going to submit his own comments directly to North Somerset Council, so we don't have his comments, I'm afraid.
Yeah, so I don't know where we stand with what we need to do.
We can make that comment.
Fine, well,
There's no sketches or photographs to consider.
okay, good.
So is that like an objection then to it?
A comment? I'm not sure. I think it's the
Okay,
tree
so just an
officer
observation.
made the,
So just an observation
yeah,
that,
I think so.
that there are no, okay.
Right, 1462, full application here from blocks A and B in Lisbon Court. Cladding,
Yeah,
I've looked at them. The only thought I had is that it seems to show the scaffold going right out to the water's edge. Is that going to be enclosed decking to allow the pedestrians to walk along the quay? Or are they going to get diverted for 2 years? Which could be another observation, because there's nothing there in the statement from the,
I didn't
Developers and-
notice that. I was looking more at the materials and the other bits, I didn't.
which all reads, you know, fairly.
Yeah, it's more or less a like for like, isn't it? That's just it's gonna be stained in a similar colour, but yeah.
So I've no objection to this. So, they know what they're talking about, and they? It's got to be done.
Yeah, and I guess the scaffold has to do what the scaffolders
Yeah.
say has to be done for health and safety, so we're sort of rocking a hard place on that.
Well, we are,
You
but
could make a request, couldn't you, to say, no objection, please could we try and keep the walkway open?
well, I think we need to make a comment that we don't see any planned diversion or access for the pedestrians.
Yeah, our assumption is that the walkway remains open during the works.
In view of the fact that it's a 2-year rebuild
Yeah.
project. Yeah.
So I've got, shows the scaffolding right out to watershed, no objection, but could every effort be made to keep the walkway open as there is no diversion has been proposed?
Yes, I mean, their building line, the sight line comes out to the water's edge. So I'm just assuming does that include the scaffold? I don't know. It's relatively wide there, and you wouldn't that was perhaps thought, but at the Mirage, of course, it's way out, isn't it? Because they've got the lifts and everything.
Does this butt up with the known works that we've got, which have been approved for what the boat folk are doing with moving the pontoon and? No, okay,
No, it's before you get to the last kink.
yeah, okay,
It's the 2 blocks there, which are sort of adjacent to each other, a bit like that.
yeah.
Okay, all right, move on.
1468, there.
Well, that's another tree, so are we discussing that?
No
Comment?
statutory of 1468, no statutory.
I understand walnut trees can sometimes be a bit of a nuisance, don't they? Cause issues sometimes with property.
What are we talking about?
Walnut trees.
Cause problem.
Don't they absorb lots of water? I don't know. I've
No
just
comment anyway.
no comment. 1506 MMA 7 Charlton View. This is the one that I know the applicant. So
Sorry, Mike, where are you looking at?
we're on the late applications at the rear of your agenda.
Now I
papers.
don't know that they won't have them because that was on your planning register that came through this week. So the planning register that came through this week, it said in there that they would be debated. Obviously, the agenda was published last week.
Yeah, so these are the late ones.
I was just commenting that it's like
These are only on, they're on the spreadsheet.
They're on the spreadsheet.
They're on
Okay, I
the
can find them. They're on the spreadsheet. Yeah.
Charlton View is the link between Queen's Avenue and Severn
Severn
Road.
Road, yeah.
And it's the last of the council dwellings, and there's a big garden.
That's right, yeah.
And it's going to go there.
It's been, that was approved, I think it was 2 years ago. And
Outline.
the outline, yeah, the planning permission, so this is just an MMA in terms of the,
Material change.
yeah, the UPVC being changed, anthracite grey, yeah. It's the property opposite has done exactly the same thing, although that's split into two, so I don't think there's any issues with
I think it's happened at both ends of these terraces. So I won't vote on that one, but you're welcome to carry on.
Yeah, no objection.
That's okay.
Do we propose second and?
Yeah,
Vote.
so Emma's proposed.
Yeah.
Mike's not taking part.
I'll second.
Yeah.
All those in favour?
Staying,
That's three. of us
Okay,
then.
that's majority, that'll do.
Okay, done.
Right, 1523 NMA, non-material amendment, 103A North Road. Great spiel there, which I won't read out. Again, it's recladding, bits, changes on that, changes on tiles, changes on the driveway.
I don't want to second guess this one, but it
Bricks
looks
out
like,
and in.
yeah, it looks like these changes are related to the access requirements for wheelchair user from and hence probably the resin rather than block. And some other things which were mentioned in regards wheelchair width. So
Good comment.
yeah.
Okay.
Accessibility.
No objection.
Yes.
Proposed by Emma, seconded by Jenny. In favour, no objection. Carried. 204 Down Road. Quite an interesting one, that one. It's 1535, and it's pretty big. And I did have a little diagram here. It's a semi. I shall pass around those. So it's quite a large proposal, befores and afters, and proposes and existing and proposed. Other one is the proposed. So it's demolition of the garage, which currently sits alongside the house, and the new proposal is tight to the boundary of the neighbour. Now, as far as I'm aware, there's no comment on mine. It's fairly early, as it only came in a couple of days ago. Either we defer it or we decide now.
How long is it going to be open for comments?
Probably in the next few weeks, I think 3 weeks or so.
That's for a time extension.
Roger?
I was going to say, it says consultation deadline is the 19th of August and determination deadline is the 20th of September.
Yeah.
So there is time if we get an extension, isn't there?
Yeah.
And we've got this dated, so it came into us 2 days ago.
Yeah, Monday.
So, yeah, I mean, 2 days, I mean, it's complex, isn't it? 2 days really isn't enough for, at least for me, to have even looked at it.
Request deferment, please. Okay, lastly, no, it's not. Back on the Hillside Road again, 1544. Certificate of lawful development for the demolition of the existing conservatory, erection of a single-story side and rear extensions and loft conversions with a rear flat roof dormer and 5 roof lights.
This is a new statutory consultation either as well.
Yes.
This and the Forester Road.
Right.
Sorry.
Do we have any observations to make about it?
Again, I haven't even seen these.
Yeah, I haven't seen these bottom two.
I did, I think, but I can't recall it, to be honest.
No comments online regarding this one.
Guess we could. It's a certificate of lawful development, so we could just look it up now, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do like in the architects who put everything in one file.
It's nice when they do a statement
Yeah.
and you can get the whole lot and you can look at pictures, yeah.
Undefined. We've seen this one before. That's right. I'm now reminded of it. So it was thrown out last time. Neighbouring properties have rejigged their houses quite considerably, particularly I think the one up from this one. We got objections from the one on the bottom on the corner
That's right.
in view of the views that were going to be pending from the balcony.
That's
And they
right,
put
yeah.
obscure glass section, I think, or some form
Yeah.
of balcony
Are
blockage.
you looking at Hillside Road or Forester Road?
Hillside,
Hillside.
yeah.
Qualified for four.
And it got objected to by yourself, Roger, because you felt it was contrary to the neighbourhood plan because it was changing a sort of 2 small 3-bedroom house into about a 5-bedroom house.
Oh, there we go.
So,
I'd like to remain consistent.
I'm not
in that
looking at the
case.
same one as you. Okay.
so yeah. And so they're a bit isolated because, of course, most of the houses around them have all changed. And this one is probably one of the originals down there.
So the refusal reasons last time were scale height, vertical massing and immediacy to adjoining property, overbearing impact on the immediate outlook of occupants of 54.
Mhm.
Yeah, close proximity of glazing to first floor balcony or rear elevation would enable a high degree of a close range overlooking.
So what are they doing
Not
here?
change that at all. Considering what we had to say last time.
What are they changing? Oh gosh. I think we're going to have to defer this one.
Was
Yeah,
the
I think-
previous one withdrawn?
No, it was
It was
rejected.
just refused.
Can we ask for a deferment, please?
Yeah, we can.
It would have been refused then on, was it an LDP last time?
No,
No.
it was a full last.
That was a full last time, so they're trying to do roughly the same under an LDP instead, yeah?
Seems like it.
Certificate of lawful development saying that we don't really need planning for it. But it seems to be quite substantial to not go through planning
I think so.
with impacts on neighbours, yeah, so.
Defer, so if we can all
Yeah,
look at
we'll
it
look-
quite seriously for next
We
time.
could just put it back to North Somerset and say.
Yeah, we don't believe it's an LDP.
We don't think it's an LDP, can you check and see whether or not it requires full planning? Because that's what they're going to do anyway, isn't it? They're going to check and see if it's an LDP. So not much point us standing in the way of that process.
Yeah.
Fair point.
So rather than that then, rather than open extension,
I'm happy to go along with that proposal. Yeah.
query that it meets the LDP
I mean, it's a big
and
development.
not
isn't it?
a full plan application.
Yeah, because if it meets the LDP, they'll just push it through anyway, won't they? And if it doesn't, they'll put it back for full planning.
It's dependent on the volume, isn't it? I think the overall volume and changes between a full and LDP.
Yeah. So if
That
it
looks-
is an LDP, there's nothing anyone can do about it anyway.
Right.
Go into the vast amount of work, yeah? Into the vast amount of development.
Over the proposed size of the development. Words to that effect.
Scale of changes, whatever.
Yeah. Well, we lastly have an LDP as well.
I think that this one's similar as well. isn't it?
557. Certificate of law development for the proposed erection of a single-story rear side extension to the attached garage and side of house following demolition of the existing sunroom. I don't think I had an issue with this one. I think I did look at it. Tend to try to get through, obviously. You all know where Forester Road is, don't you?
Yeah.
No comments online.
It's been enough time now. It was only the 31st of July that it was actually,
We only had it in this week.
yeah.
Yeah, so not really any chance. That's the problem with late ones. There's never a chance for people to come out online anyway.
So it's about sort of midway down the terrace, or down the road.
The only problem with these diagrams is that you don't get it in proportion to,
Oh, it's our friends at Bower House again.
it's quite close proximity to the to the fence, but I don't know if that's actually in proportion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, these plans don't make it very easy to make a quick determination.
No,
do
I
they?
don't know. What do you want to do? Defer it? Decide now?
Extension, time extension?
Well, as an LDP, so do we do the same as the last one and just query whether or not it
Query whether it
falls
meets
within
that.
LDP or if it requires full planning?
Well, it's on a much lower, smaller scale, isn't it, than the proposed previous application?
Is it up to the boundary or not?
Yes, it
Yeah,
looks like it.
it. That's what I was trying to make out. So in the,
Permitted development has to be away from the boundary though, doesn't it?
yeah,
So maybe just query it.
I thought permitted development was of a certain size, single story.
as
You
long as
didn't
it's
need-
no more than 2
Yeah.
meters. Yeah,
Unless they changed the rules.
Yeah.
But they are demolishing a sunroom which was onto the boundary and replacing it with an extension over where the garage is,
but if
presumably.
that sunroom didn't have planning permission in the first instance, then
So do you want to query it then?
yeah.
Query it as an RDP?
They're putting up a solid wall instead of garage one, I think. New cavity wall on new foundation to the boundary. Right. Yeah. I mean, I personally would propose approval subject to no complaints or objections from the neighbours. Because all they're doing really is replacing a garage wall with a new wall on the same line, removing a building or the sunroom and putting a fence up instead. So you could argue that that might be better for the neighbour.
Is that a proposal, Mike?
Yes. Approval subject to no objections from.
Have you got a seconder?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
I can't make it out.
So Emma's or Roger's proposal for query the
Yeah,
LDP.
Shall I propose that and see if anyone says?
Would you like to vote in the absence of our deputy clerk?
Anyone else wish to vote? There we go, that's 3 there.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
There we
No.
go. Okay, thanks.
Just quietly in the corner, that would be great.
You stop it. Next week. You know, right. Well, I'm actually in it.
Right, so that's it. We will, I've got them. We will just note the trees, the list of trees there that we'll go through the hands of our tree officer and his staff. List of decisions. And then, do any of you cross-reference the decisions that have been gone through the system and what we commented on? Yeah. Sometimes,
Approved or not?
yeah, did too.
Was it land to the rear of 69 South Road, Pulleyshead? We spoke about that one at the last one, didn't we? And that's been withdrawn by the applicant.
Mhm.
That's quite interesting to note that we went into quite a bit of detail.
Yes,
And hopefully they're taking some comments on board and they're going to rejig it and put it back through.
Mhm. And we had a couple of members of the public here, didn't we,
Yeah.
speaking about it. Yeah. Okay, from the minutes of the last meeting held on the 3rd of July. Are you going to be minded to approve the minutes of that meeting? Thank you, Roger. Seconded by,
I don't think I
Can't
was
do it.
there.
I was
seconded by me. but it looks like there's only the two of us voting.
So that was Roger proposing?
Yes. So we might have to duly note that there were just the two of us.
And one can second it, that's
No,
No, you
Sorry,
wasn't around. Me.
it?
Yeah, I proposed, didn't I? Mike seconded.
Mm.
We should,
There were four of us there.
we should get to the bottom of this, because occasionally there may be a meeting where we have the minutes of a meeting where nobody was in attendance, who's in attendance
Just
here.
look at the video and check.
So is that the procedure? If no one was in attendance, we have to go back and check the video.
Make sure you're happy that with the recording, yeah.
Okay, excellent. That's not what I'm considering at all then, is it?
So our meeting is therefore declared closed at 9:05. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you very much.
And the next meeting's in September on the 3rd,
Fourth.
4th.
So I
Wednesday
need
the
to give
4th.
my apologies for, because I'm away.